Hello, Janek.
Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen. How are you?
It's Alles gut. Oh, is the mic working?
Yeah, mic is working perfectly,
Ah.
but I can't see you yet.
Okay. So I must not have my video on. It's
No
not
problem.
like I haven't done this before. Holy shit. Ah.
Hey, so good to see you, man. You know, I've started this experiment to do these conversations. Just it feels like a few weeks ago, but it's actually 3 or 4 months now. And so you're one of the few people that I have not met in person before,
Okay.
and it's always a little bit. I'm a little bit more, a little bit nervous about that sometimes.
I mean, I think this is probably the new way of meeting people anyway with Zoom, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. And even though it has been like that with Skype for me, like since like 2006 or something, even, and, but it still, yeah, it still feels new. And then, everybody was talking about Zoom and I had to use Zoom, even though could have done the same with other software, right? It's
Right.
kind of interesting how this company kind of took advantage of what happened, right?
I wish I'd bought stock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Hey, I saw. I already see the HX Stomp behind you there. That's cool.
Oh shit. This is not a product placement.
No, no, no. It's okay. It's okay.
It, like if I had a 14 millimeter lens on here, you'd just see fucking pedals everywhere. Like these kind of built-in shelves. It's just every so this if
I can see quite a few there and
walk
down there.
down
Yes,
here
yes,
is just full of them. It's just pedals on top of pedals on top of pedals, and sometimes there's actually a fucking musical instrument, but mainly it's pedals.
yes, yes. Hey, it's I checked into your. I guess it was Twitch or something at some point. I
Yeah.
saw you play the piano, and that was wonderful.
Ah,
Uh, like I think I don't know, like I want to talk about you obviously today, or we want to talk about you a little bit because I find like just having followed you sort of like superficially for a while, there was a point when you sort of changed your strategy. At least that's what it looked like to me from the outside, where things kind of like changed, where you made a let's say maybe 110-degree turn or something like that. That's correct, huh?
I mean, it's a temporary 110 degree turn on my way to being a 360 degree turn to go back to what it was in 2001, 2002.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's more like it, because I hate where things are now. I really do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's super that we start with that in our conversation because that's really like it's so funny for me, and I don't know why that is. I'm a trained psychologist, but I'm a professional musician, and like the current situation, like the people, everything like kind of that you see online, sort of has taken a turn that, on one hand, was sort of like interesting, and I don't want to say good because I don't think it was good,
right.
but interesting, right? And so tell me, so where were you till 2001?
2001. I was 1 year into living in New York. I lived in New York City for a decade. I moved there in 2000 and kind of gave up. I always signify the end of the era by giving the keys up to the apartment.
Hmm.
I did
Hmm.
leave. I did live bi-coastally for a little while. And please forget I'm talking, but I'm not looking at the camera because I have a photograph I'm going to share with you if I can find it while I talk, which kind of talks a little bit to what we were just saying. And it was 2000. Well, it's 2001, 2000. In 2000, there was some hope. In 2000, there was no this. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
there was no this. There was nothing in the way. It was still very analog. It was still very it was still very like proof of work based. Like you did the work, you got the gig. That was it. There was no shortcut. There was no way around it. There was no unlimited source of shortcuts and hacks to get to the goal because the goal looks kind of bougie and cool. And, oh, I'd like to be up there, but I don't want to do any of this stuff walking up the ladder to get there, which is kind of how I feel it is a little bit now. And it's, I can easily fall into the category of get off my lawn, grumpy old man kind of thing, as old as I am or as young as I am, depends how you want to look at it. I'm 42 years old as of the filming of this interview. So I can easily fall into that category, I would imagine. I don't feel like I do, but I would imagine anyone watching this who's, born after 1990 or 1995 is like, he's just old and grumpy. Guy doesn't have any gigs. I can see that. But I also am fully aware of what happened back then. And even I was on the very tail end of that.
Yes.
So maybe you, as a trained psychologist, will be able to analyze this way better than I can explain it. In the sense of there's at some point there are kind of nostalgic tinges of regret in terms of the era that I came up in. I wasn't fully in the 90s of the analog thing to build a huge career and then just ride it out like a Joshua Redman or a Brad Meldau or a Kenny Garrett or one of those kind of players. And then I certainly wasn't a 100% digital Instagram superstar on the other end where I just got millions of followers and was a flashy musician and kind of played out the career that way. I'm just not, of course not me, I'm not the only person in the world who's 42 years old, but me along with a bunch of other people, very good friends of mine, kind of bridged that gap. Some way more successfully than me or than others. And some people remember the analog and have been forced through the digital wormhole, so to speak, if they want any chance of survival in today's kind of climate, musical climate. So there are some tinges of perhaps the idealism with which I started out my journey as a teenager, thinking, oh, here are the parameters, they're quite defined. I like all of these musicians. They did this and have historically done that since the 30s, 40s, 50s, made records, toured the world, blah, blah, blah. I want to do that. So there was a really defined goal in the beginning. And then that goal got very blurred as time went on. And of course, we talk about 2000, 2001. 2001, New York City's music scene got really destroyed, with September 11th. And personally, there were gigs I was in the middle of that just disappeared and never came back. Huge kind of financial downturns, which were kind of a big stumbling block at the time for everyone, not just me, but speaking from my experience, there were like some huge stumbling blocks like that. And then simply clubs not reopening, places I had hoped to forge my career and really pay my dues and cut my chops. So I'm trying to now, instead of being that old man screaming at the kids to get off my lawn, I'm really trying now to make that 360-degree turn. You're right. I don't know about 110. I hope I'm closer to like 200 degrees at the moment because I really want to get back to that true north.
That's quite possible. I just was feeling from what I was seeing that something was going on and that you sort of, not that you had a realization, but that you always knew kind of what was going on and also where you were. And that, I don't know, like that's what it looked like to me.
So tell me, I'm really intrigued to see what it is that was the trigger for that analysis for you. Like what kind of things would you highlight? Because then I can speak to that and tell you.
Yes, yes. So I've been like a superficial user of YouTube, let's say, for a long time. I only started kind of looking at it in more detail maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
But before that, some of my students and my student and now one of my best friends, Eric, like he was watching your videos and he said, Marcus, you need to talk with Janek. He's one of us. That's sort of like Eric's style of saying, this guy, you kind of like knows, right? And so then I saw some of your vlogs and I could just see in your face that you just didn't want to do it anymore. Like as simple as that. And I don't know like what the time frame was, like when was that a year before you stopped, or I don't know. And I know like that for me, I have realized very early on, like even in the early 2000s, that I need to remove the middleman if I want to be able to survive in the music business. And I sort of like kind of like saw that kind of light into your face that, just I want to go for it. I want to just have my own business, let's say, and I don't want to give, work into the pockets of other people.
Okay. Well, that's yeah. So 100%, and I would say that um, if there are a few kind of like moments that along the timeline that jump out to me. I think until about 2005, I was young, In 2005, I didn't turn 27 until the end of 2005. So, um, and I'd spent most of my time touring as a sideman. I was playing some gigs of my own locally, but no kind of touring around the world as a band leader. I had managed to cut my first record as a band leader before I was 25. So we got that done. And that was an awesome experience. And that kind of gave me a taste of cutting out the middleman because I did it all myself, no label. And he gave me a taste of like, oh, like these are the greatest musicians on earth, and this is what I want to spend my time doing: writing music, recording music, and playing music with people like this. And when I look back at the lineup of that first record, I go, holy shit! How did I get these people in a room for as minuscule budget as I had? I mean, this was like the most bullshit budget, and they all agreed to do it, and they learned this complicated music. They played the shit out of it, and it's still I'm not really that proud of a lot of things I've recorded, but that thing as a first effort as a band leader is actually something I'm quite proud of still, which is very, very strange for me to maintain an attachment to something that's so old. And not like I spent time listening to it, I just remember the feeling and what motivation it gave me to go forward. So I'm kind of forever grateful for that. So that's one big moment on the timeline where I'm starting, already in 2004 we recorded that, I'm starting to think like, I'm sick of waiting around for other people. I made this shit happen like this. I made some phone calls. I wrote some music. Boom, we're in the studio. We make the
Mhm.
record. Done. So I'm already starting to think. Then I get a big tour in 2005 that I can't really turn down financially, and I'm touring the whole year. 2006, I make my first kind of proper international trip with a kind of all-starish band to South America with Randy Brecker and Tim Miller and Gary Husband and Elliot
Mhm.
Mason, and we do a tour down in Venezuela. So then I'm really getting the taste, like, oh, this is the shit. And Venezuela was so starved for music that it was like we were the Beatles or something going down there. I mean,
Mhm.
it was
Mhm.
pandemonium at the shows, completely sold out. I was like, I
I
could
know,
get
I
used,
know that experience in
right?
South America. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that was the first, and unfortunately now the only time I've been to Venezuela specifically. Um, but then I was like, okay, I really. So then, right around that time, 05, 06, 07, you're talking about Facebook becoming public, and you don't have to have a .edu email address to get in. So I get on Facebook, and MySpace is cranking. And with MySpace, there was real hope. We hadn't quite hit that like mass adoption of the ad revenue business model, owning the users and mining the users' content with MySpace. MySpace seemed kind of open and artist friendly. And it had an amazing feature. I don't know if you remember this, where people with music pages listed their influences. There's a little
Mhm.
box on the left hand side said influences, and that was a searchable feature. So what did I do? Search Pat Metheny. 10,000 people. Add those 10,000 people. Search Jacob Astorius. Add. I spent weeks, months adding people and building a network to the point where I had like a solid 150,000 people on my MySpace page. And in 2008 and 2009, I toured the world as a band leader because of MySpace. And that gave me, it was a metric. Promoters would say, how many followers do you have on MySpace? I'd say 150,000. They say you got the gig. It was insane to me, completely insane. Like I'm a total nobody, but I'm selling out 500-seater concert hall in Singapore. Like what is going on? So that really gave me hope. And then everything changed. Like after 2010, it started to become the precursor of what social media is today, where we are the product. It's not a product we
Yeah.
use. We're totally the product. So I'm not telling anyone anything new there, but that was definitely a feeling. And so fast forward some many years to the vlog, I was too late. Like Casey Neistat did that in 2014, 2015, hugely successfully. I wasn't even aware of that. It wasn't even on my radar until late 2016. I was kind of too late to the game. And I like what you were saying about seeing it in my eyes that I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Mhm.
It was tough. What it was in the beginning was I was single, and it was an amazing way to learn how to produce video fast. I like pressure. I like having a schedule. I've got to do this. Today is another day and it's another video and I've got to do it. And now my Final Cut Pro skills are in pristine condition and I can edit things and I can write a soundtrack and I can do all these things. But I think I kicked the daily thing after 311 days consecutive. And it started to fall off at maybe 210, 220. And plus I met Chelsea in the beginning of 2017 and trying to have a relationship. And every day you're like, hey, babe, I'd love to go to dinner, but I've got a 4.5 hour edit right now.
Mm-hmm.
We were never going to stay together if that continued. As fun as it was, and as cute as we made some videos together, and it was a real thing, and it just, yeah. I'm not 22 years old, and a girl from Nebraska trying to move to Hollywood and be famous.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's to me what it feels like when I see some of these vloggers now, at least someone like Casey Neistat had like an opinion. He had, he was making some political statements, sometimes emotional statements. Like he was a real filmmaker. He had come from selling a TV show to HBO. He'd come from like the legacy movie making business, for instance, and parlayed it into YouTube and become hugely successful. But it was honest. And at some point the honesty factor disappeared for me, and I was like, I am just doing this because I feel I have to.
Yeah.
And I think now is the same thing. Like I don't know how actively you watch my channel, but you might notice that the upload rate is incredibly slow now. It's 1 or 2 videos a month, and sometimes it's because I've been paid to make them, or because I've received free equipment or something, and part of my deal is that I create some content for the people, but it's not out of like pure joy to get in front of a camera and go for an hour, and then spend a day editing it.
Yeah, like the question really is what should Janek really be doing? I think that's the question for me. Like, should he be making videos?
No.
Probably not. No. And just you as a musician, you have, as you say, even like in your mid-20s, you have already gotten to a point where your career was it was a start, but it also was already a sort of climax already in a way.
100%. It was the analog climax to the very end of the analog world without any of the benefits. There was no contract with Warner Brothers. Not that I would have wanted to take a record contract. I think those are archaic, but there were none of the like the tour support from somebody. There was no like booking agent or lawyer or manager or any of those, pretty major factors that you need to be just a touring jazz musician. Like one of my best friends in the world is Jojo Meyer, the drummer, Swiss drummer, and we get into the weeds on this one a lot. We talk about this a lot. And I think he either came in 90 or 91, 92, early 90s to New York. And he's like, yeah, I realized I was 40 years too fucking late. I was like, holy shit, in 91 you were 40 years too late? And I came 9 years later? Like, what the hell? What hope did I have? Now...
You had a little bit of a Swiss accent there for a moment.
Yeah, I've been hanging with Jojo for 20 something years, so we've been on the road a lot, so knowing people like him and the few people I don't want to sound ungrateful or that was a bad time. Like that's the last thing I want to project. I want to kind of highlight, even to myself, like where the transitions were and how I can change it to be happier now. But in talking about that time, I've definitely got to give props to people that I met and played with and was definitely a part of some kind of scene and remain still to this day in terms of people like Mike Stern and Randy Brecker and the people, the legends that I grew up listening to that I actually moved to New York and got to play with. This was like number one great success, while we were, it was definitely like, that was my little moment in the analog world of jazz and fusion or whatever you want to call it. And having mentors like Hiram Bullock and Kenwood Denard and like all these people associated, in the bass world with Jacko, and getting to see that firsthand, getting to be a part of it firsthand was priceless, regardless of what the actual payoff personally for my own career was. Forget about that. That's all. I think that's all a little bit superficial anyway. And it was the like the nostalgic regret I talked about is still just based on having a dream as a teenager to do something, but not realizing it wasn't going to be available by the time I got to the point of being able to execute it.
Mhm.
So I definitely want to project a lot of positivity, because those times were amazing in New York, as up and down as it was, and perhaps as it didn't fit my exact projection of what I wanted it to be, still some amazing times.
I think that a little bit of negativity that we can see in the world, and like speaking about that, is actually positivity. I
Oh,
think it's positivity to speak out and explain how things are, because like, as you know, like people who are not in our situation or a similar situation, kind of like they don't know what's going on.
yeah.
And
Like the false bravado with which most people lead their online social media driven lives now
Mhm.
plays into that so much. They don't talk about that stuff, or they don't even forget about talking about it. They don't admit it to themselves to sort of mitigate the long term effects of being a part of that world. And what it is now, it's like you said, what should Janek Gwizdala do? As soon as you said that, I immediately said to myself in my head, like, don't be a content creator. That's what I shouldn't be doing. Like, I don't want to create content within the framework that most people do right now. The YouTube, the Instagram, the TikTok. I don't even have TikTok. Let's face it. I'm that old. But it's not fun, like I'm so fortunate with my books that I get to make a living through music, through writing and talking about and teaching something that I know quite a bit about through experience, and I genuinely enjoy formulating ideas for.
Yes.
you know I have a new book coming out, like, because I was about to say, I've been sitting here looking at my bass for 3 days and haven't touched it, because I have a new book coming out this coming Saturday. We're here in May of 2021 here, and it's so much work. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
a 15-hour days for weeks on end trying to get this thing together. It's a massive undertaking, but it is fortunate in the sense that I get to then back off doing that, because once the book is out, it kind of takes care of itself, and I can get back to music, and that's that's pretty much the goal, to balance that. But I'd like to not be writing 2 or 3 books a year.
Mhm.
I'd like to do one every 18 months, perhaps. Like.
You see, I think it's okay in a way that, as creative people, we are content creators, but it's just first of all, it's the term that is horrible, and secondly, um, and I'm guilty of that myself, because I'm like a really intuitive, great instant composer. I can just sit down and write, record. And so I could, every day, I could record an album of the most beautiful ambient music that there's ever been. I could do that. And at times I did that, right? And that's why I have archives
Right.
of stuff that I could put out a new album every week. And so, and sometimes I did, but it starts feeling horrible. It's really like this, the music, or it gets kind of like degraded, to be simply content. And you know, like the power that, and I'm talking about you as a musician, you know, the power that you have a musician to move somebody, and not only talking about live performance, but also albums, recordings, right? It is something where we should kind of like believe in that idea that we can move somebody's lives in such a way that there will be some sort of feedback loop, that we will get something in return. And I'm not talking necessarily talking about money, but I'm talking about like long-term relationship, friendship,
Oh,
that kind of thing. And so for me, just you know, I had one great gig, or I still have it, with Stickman, with Pat Maslotta and Tony Levin, which is
yeah, yeah.
a trio. And so we've been touring the world since 2011, and that was like so that was how many years? 9 years? Yeah, 9 years of almost constant touring, which was great. And now that has come to an end, and that's why I'm here talking to you, because now I'm kind of like. I've been degraded myself to be a content generator here, and
Well, you know, I appreciate more the side of like having meaningful conversations with people. Like if this was the way I or people created content and actually got to a point,
yeah,
or recollected important moments in development, and you know, share philosophies and, you know, education and ideas, then man, I think this is hugely valuable. But you know, I have had a podcast, like in terms of me being on the internet creating content, it was my audio podcast that got me started in 2006, I think it was, you know. And when I look at like the crazy cool people I've had on my podcast as guests, it's my favorite thing to do, to talk to people, and the least engaged thing that happens on my channels, on any of my channels, whether it's video, audio, whatever. I had Seth Godin on my podcast. It got no views. Like like 1,000. Are you kidding me? This guy's one of the great minds of modern fucking marketing and crossover between music and book world. Like so much information that every single person who writes me a dumb email saying, yeah, so how do you build a website? How do you get online? They should read one of his books or just listen to that interview, and the whole plan is laid out for them. You know, so that kind of content I really appreciate making. I enjoy listening back to it and rehearing what those people said to me, even though I was there, you know, and it's what gets the least engagement. Now, if I write some sort of a controversial title to a video, and then quasi talk shit about someone, not that I do, but if it gets perceived as that, then to the moon, you know, off it goes with the most traction of any video I could possibly make. You know,
so
so yeah.
what is your solution, or what's the path to the solution?
Yeah, let's get to the solution. Let's stop complaining about it. Let's get to the solutions. Yeah. I'm doing the complaining. Sorry. My solution is to manage, and it's very much a work in progress and something I'm changing right now. We're talking like really right now. Is to manage my time better in terms of the things I do that keep me alive. The books, for instance, janekspacesstudio.com, like things, you know, revenue, sources of revenue, to manage those better. Maintaining the honesty with them as well. I don't want to just be like, oh, how can I squeeze more money out of these things? Like I have to maintain the integrity of it, but also make it more efficient so it's not taking up massive amounts of my time. And then not be tricked, like not be sucked into the machine of like, oh shit, I have to make a YouTube video this month. Like I have to post to Instagram. I have to do this, like that feeling, that pressure. So, I want to, I don't know if it's going to be possible, I want to hand off every single social media platform I have to someone else to manage, for instance. If I'm in my studio and I make a little video of me practicing or something, I'll send it to them. They can chop it up, put titles on it, and post it as content for people to see. Awesome. So there's still there's a maintenance of kind of audience, artist, you know, conversation going on there. But it's not like, you know, shitty DMs or comments or like, oh, you suck, or like, you know, like that kind of shit, which is like every day hundreds of comments and messages and just the worst shit you never ever want to read in your life. Like I don't want that in my orbit, you know? And then it's to like I look at someone like Bill Laswell. I don't know if you're a fan of Bill
Yes,
Laswell.
I am.
Yeah, so like it's probably not even his complete discography, but because Spotify is so shit with that. But if you just go to Bill Laswell's Spotify and it's like, oh shit, this is like the fucking Beethoven of the modern day. The amount of content he puts out, and he's not doing it for the sake of it. He's doing that because that's what he hears, and he can, you know. And he's older than me, and he's still doing it, you know, like putting out 2-3 albums a year and singles. So when it comes to making music, interesting. Perhaps I will feel differently if I get to do it intensely for the next decade or so. But right now, I feel like I have so much freaking music to put out that I want to record, improvisation and composition and whatever, that I don't think right now I feel like I'm doing it just for the sake of it. Like making music and recording and releasing it is not content creation for me. That's actually completing the 360-degree circle and getting back to what I always wanted to do. And I feel like I'm so shortchanging myself on the process because I spent all that time, tens of thousands of hours with the instrument and thinking about music and listening to music and studying music and being around great musicians and searching to the ends of the earth, quite literally, to find things. And what am I doing? You know, I'm like talking about pedals. Like, what the fuck? You know?
But you know what? I have maybe like I don't know if there's any truth to it, but this more positive perspective that maybe because you were so talented and you were so successful, like in the early years of your career, and I mean your career, like when you started picking up an instrument. And I read a little bit on Wikipedia, and I don't know if that's true what it says there, but it seems like it was only like 10, 12 years, and you were in New York, right? And you were recording your album, probably.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning of music, period, sure. Like playing guitar and, you know,
Yeah,
trumpet and piano. Yeah, from starting to play the bass. I came to the bass a little bit late, maybe 16.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like about 8 years from playing the
Uh,
bass to making the first record,
and
sure.
there you go. So no, just the thought that came into my head was that maybe you sort of like uh, kind of like you know, sometimes there are these phases in our lives where we take an internship or an apprenticeship and something like that, and for some of us, and you're maybe one of us, you know, like it's important to actually have substance, and it's important to do the things well that we do. So that's why we can also get easily distracted if we realize there's a particular skill that we need in order to kind of like bridge the next 6 months or whatever. And then these things, they accumulate, and you kind of like you become the greatest. Like you can mix and master your own music. You are the best bass player in the world. You're an amazing composer. You know how to use Final Cut Pro. Like, you know, all these things very, very well, but
Not
right.
you.
And that,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And in the end, I can see and I can feel that you have this passion and love for music that maybe has created a little bit of suffering, or let's say that the path that you kind of like, you know what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
absolutely. And I think you're right. And I think that's probably why I'm now, like I said just now about what I'm doing to change that, is the management of time, you know,
Mhm.
is not being the video editor, the recording engineer, the mix engineer, the this, that, not having 15 jobs, just having one. You know, that's
Mhm.
why I'm trying to get all the way back around to the beginning, just to have one job. Um, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I was in the middle because like now all my books come with play-alongs, and I make a video of each musical example in the book so people can have a visual reference at a slow tempo as a learning tool, you know. So there are over 300 play-alongs with this new book, right? So my buddy texts me. He's like, "What are you doing? You want to go play tennis?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I want to go play tennis. I play tennis every day, but today I'm off because I'm bouncing down 300 play alongs in Logic." And I send him a screenshot of my Logic session, and he sends me like the puke emoji. And he's a musician, he knows what's up. And he's like, "Dude, can't you just like hire someone to do that for you?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah, I really could, but I keep getting close, but I can never find anyone who's slightly more psychotic than I am,
Mm.
you know." And I used to think it was like a control freak thing, like, oh, I've got to be in control of every tiny detail. I can't let anything go. But I realize it's not that. It's I think I've had too many situations where I have hired someone and then they haven't done it the way it needed to be done, and then I've had to go and do it in the end anyway. So it's cost me money and twice the amount of time. So I think I have some reactions to that from the past. But for sure, I need to streamline that in terms of hiring other people to do social media, to do editing. The video editor is, I could probably make some things I'm actually really proud of if I just focus my energy on the first 10% of the process and leave the rest to someone else to do. I'm really lucky. I think that I'm so bad as a mix engineer. Like, I have no fucking clue,
Okay.
zero clue. I can make a kick drum sound like a flute. It's just horrible. Like, you listen to the mix and you just ah. So I'm really lucky that I don't ever have to mix any of my music, and I'm very lucky to have good engineers around me. So
It,
as one thing down now.
you see this feeling that being a control freak. I think it's very, very interesting. I think that is also kind of intrinsically tied to being an artistic persona, or like an artist, somebody interested in art, because um, and when I say art, I also mean the craft aspect of that, right?
Yeah.
So, and then when it comes to just asking somebody to bounce just like stuff out of Logic, for example, there's like a certain process, there's a certain quality, how do you call it, quality management, kind
Control.
of like, yeah, exactly. And so what happens is that if you need somebody who actually has interest in you as an artist,
Yeah,
and
it's true.
then it can work. And that is the difficulty. So you have to find somebody who is really interested in supporting your aims, and who probably has also similar aims.
It's like the great, you know, duos of music. Lennon McCartney, or Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor, or Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays. Like, when you think about that, they really found their kind of co-pilot, so to speak. Um, I think I have that in my wife a lot. Like, she works on the books with me. Like, she does all of the design, all of the copy work. She does all of the ass kicking when I'm getting behind, and like motivation. And yeah, these books would not be what they are without her, for sure. You know,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
did books before I met her, and then after I met her, the thing like took off to the stratosphere. So there's definitely that. And then I also see people like, although I don't know what Brian Eno's process is like. I don't know how many people he's surrounded with in his studio. The few interviews there are of him kind of working, I don't see that many other people. So I also think there are like a bunch of kind of, a loner is a little harsh, but people who relish being sort of hermit types. I think I definitely fall in that category. Just like, shut up, leave me alone, go away. I'll come out when I'm ready, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because like if were like following your vlog for 60 days, 80 days, 100 days, and you were kind of like a very different person there, right? Like
Okay.
not quite the hermit, really
Um,
not.
yeah, I guess it depends what period of the vlog, right? Because I was touring a lot. I mean, there was a lot of shit going on that year. Like, I was on the road. I did the Last Minute World Tour. Yeah, I played tennis every day. Like, there was probably way too much tennis in the vlog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
So the
At the same
this
time, I don't think I was putting on an act.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, I don't think I was putting on an act. So yeah, maybe I'm less of a hermit than I think I am. But I just mean like I think in the creative moment, I'm
Mhm.
very capable of shutting out the rest of the universe for long periods of time if I have to. It's not possible. I have a wife, dog, cat, responsibilities, other shit going on. I can't just go off the grid for 3 weeks and not come out, So now that's a kind of a micro version of that. Like I can easily be down here in my studio for like 7 hours with the red button on recording and not think about anything. But that
Mhm.
used to be really weeks where I would be like that, So maybe things are changing.
So when the new book is out, are you what are you gonna do
Uh,
musically?
hey, take a week off. Literally, we're going on vacation next week for the first time in a very long time. First
Mhm.
time since our wedding, actually. It'll be the first time in 2 years. So, but musically, I had planned to put out one single a month this year. Starting in February, I had the idea. I got February and March, so I'm already 2 months behind on that. But a bunch of things recorded and things I'm really like, here's the thing I always tell like students, and we talk about it like master classes and clinics and stuff like that, is when people are asking about the practice routine and how do you manage your time. It's crazy because everyone sees all this stuff I do and they're like, God, how do you manage your? It's so insane your schedule and blah. I'm like, I'm kind of the worst. It might look like that from the outside that I do all this shit, but I feel like I'm kind of the worst. So when we talk about that, I say I think the only reason I'm effective is because I use the small moments very well. Like the headphones are always fucking on, always on. My wife mocks me mercilessly about it because I walk around the house. She said, who walks around the house, their own house, with noise cancelling headphones on and their iPad in their hand? Like, who does that shit? So she mocks me a lot. But it's all in fun, and it really, like, yesterday I had to do 4 loads of laundry and bed sheets and fold everything, and that's like freaking 2 hours, 3 hours of work. Headphones on, I listened to like 3 Aphex Twin albums back to back that I hadn't heard in 10 years, and went down this total new part, not new, but just a change of scenery. And so I'm really using the small moments well. I think I've learned to get the most out of the time where I don't have my instrument, I don't have my computer, I don't have all these luxury aids, musical tools around me, and just listening is super powerful. I also don't think people give the day as much credit for the amount of hours there are in it. There are 24 hours. You only really have to sleep for 7 or 8 of them. What are you truly doing with that 16 or 17 hours? You're sitting there playing Xbox, like bullshit.
And I mean, people don't understand what a real professional musician is. Like, it's not somebody with a day job who just plays gigs on the weekend, right? So
Yeah,
we actually have to work. That's also part of it. Like,
sure.
it's not just fun. We have to work. We have to create music. We have to create content of some sort,
And for
and we
certain gigs,
do.
maintain basic fundamentals of our
Yeah.
instrumental, not prowess, instrumental ability, like,
Yes.
yeah. And I think I try not to get that disconnect though, because I find myself, it can feel like it can look from the outside, even though we don't mean it to be this, it can look from the outside to be very elitist when we say, oh, well, professional musicians who don't have a day job, we have to do, it can look a little, because let's face it, most people engaging in what we do are not professional musicians.
Yeah.
Or if you are successful, most of them are not professional musicians. If you just play for musicians, good luck. But most of the time, people engaging in the content in the books are not professional musicians. So I have to always be conscious of bridging that gap and being like, well, set your goals first. Like, ask yourself, don't look at me and say, oh, I have to do that because he or she does that. Like, set your goals first and then build the framework around that to, maybe you are an accountant but you love to play music and you have 2 hours a day to do it. Great. Still not a professional musician. You know, You're still never going to do the 6 to 8 hours I still do every day, regardless of where, I practiced all through the pandemic,
Mhm.
6 hours a day. It drove my wife nuts, and she's a professional musician, you know?
But do you have any idea what the source of your energy is and where your love for music comes from?
Yeah.
Would you like to share?
I can share some of it. I would say it was like a safety mechanism and a way out, you know, to speak in broad strokes without getting too far into the details and the weeds. And you know, it's not like I come from a family of 12 where three of my siblings died and we lived in abstract poverty in Calcutta for, like I'm not talking like some sob story like real people are going through right now. I'm not trying to paint myself as something like that at all, but there were definitely things to want to have a way out and to sort of save some sanity along the way. So I think the unwavering willpower, which is what it boils down to at the end of the day, like people, that's always a common question, is like, so what is it that drives you? Like how the fuck do you get out of bed and practice that much every day again and again and again, and you're 42 and you're still doing it? Like what the fuck? Like get a life, man. Like, and the unwavering willpower comes from that, I think. And to also, I just don't want to have died and have sucked, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
Like what a waste of time. Like I if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna go and do it, which means I've done very few things compared to things I might like to do. I've done very few things, but I've always tried to execute them to like the highest, or to be genuinely curious about what it is I'm doing without reservation. Curious no matter what the answer is when you ask the question. Because a lot of the times the answer to the question you ask when you're curious about something is something you're not going to like. And it is not going to be the answer you expect. And it is going to make whatever it is you're trying to do 10 times tougher than you thought it was 5 minutes ago before you knew the answer. you know. But when you can hear the answer and go, oh, fuck, that's really difficult, and then go, that's what I want. That's just a personal thing, to be honest with yourself, And I know, like, and if I get the answer and I don't like what I hear, I'm like, that's not for me. Done. Next, you know. So yeah, and there have been a few things I tried. I was like, wow, I really think I want to do this, and then oh shit, I couldn't have been more wrong. But music has apparently been the one, that I stuck with through everything. Had the option to be a professional athlete early on. Um, you know, very young, I was sailing around the world, doing a whole bunch of different stuff, like massive expeditions. That could have been another big career path. So, yeah, there have definitely been some like big changes, but music was the one that was like, oh, this is like something I can sink my teeth. I love the work. I fucking love the work, you know? And every single person who I respect and who I love as a musician or a human being or whatever it is they do, they all have that in common. They cannot wait to get back to the work. They're not all psychos like me. They do take vacations sometime and are realistic and have families and stuff. But for the most part, they're just in love with the work, and it doesn't matter. You know, I've become more recently like very, very interested in blockchain technology, and not the like, oh, Bitcoin man, yeah, not the like the broy kind of, I'm in crypto, bro, like that kind of bullshit, but actually the underlying technology of what is fucking happening with the world right now.
Mhm.
And the characters that you see in that are pretty amazing. in terms of the mountain they face, the workload they face, and the problems they have to solve, and they just, yep, every day. There's this
Hmm.
guy Charles Hoskinson, who's the one of the founders of Ethereum and now the founder of Cardano, and is just like, what a happy-go-lucky, eccentric billionaire dude who doesn't give a shit about money and just like is trying to solve Africa's problems, single-handedly with a blockchain technology. It's fucking insane. So yeah, all those kind of people I respect, I see that little thing in them, this unwavering willpower to never give up and to be totally honest about the process.
Hmm. Yeah, I can find myself in what you're saying, and you know, if it's interesting for you, like I was 9 years, and my father had an accident. The car, he was almost killed, by another driver, and so basically, my father was in hospital, which like for 3 years or so to get fixed, and then he was ill for another 17 years. And so basically, my mother had to go to work, and I had a younger brother, like your age, so 6 years younger. And so basically, there wasn't any time left for me.
Right.
So when I turned around that time, so between 9 and 10, like my uncle started playing records to me, like in the early 80s, and I heard music, and sort of that became something that I got seriously interested in. So like even when other kids from school like wanted to go out and play pool or something, I said no, I'd rather sit at my keyboard and work out nice chord sequences and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and that's like where I'm coming from. But now, like, so I kind of believe into these 7-year cycles. So like the idea also of the octave in life and stuff like that. And 42 is quite a year.
Uh-huh.
For me, it was like a total breakdown. That was kind of
Okay.
like the burnout and divorce and stuff like that. And uh,
Shit, 42. No, mine was almost 6 years. Mine was 2015.
okay.
Missed the 7-year cycle slightly. So maybe I'm due another burnout next year.
But it's great. And like, as you say, this, I'm sometimes wondering if there's a better word for work, right? Like to
Process.
really say it again.
Process,
Process, yes. Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. 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 Because like how do you explain to people who do not have that sense, right? What work means to you, as opposed to what like going to work means for them. And I find that quite, in a way, I have to say, with the audience, people that are my friends and that buy my music or that support me in other ways, um, there has been like a big part of the relationship with them was some sort of education that I had to give them,
Hmm.
funnily enough, right? And I sometimes feel bad about saying that even, but it's kind of true because
Yeah, it's not arrogant, even though it feels like that sometimes. Like, oh my God, I have to tell you this. No, but I guess we come up against that in that most people we meet are going to be doing something to make a living that they do not love, for sure. you
Mhm.
know. And they might enjoy it sometimes, but it doesn't like define their lives. They don't like roll over to the alarm clock and go, "Oh, 6 a.m. Awesome. Let me get on my 2-hour commute. Let me go and deal with Kevin and Susan at the office that I fucking hate." Like no, no. Um, but that's me in the morning. I'm like, "Oh shit, it's like it's 8:30. Damn, I'm an hour late. Like I missed an hour of practice today. Like that's how I feel. But yeah, it is.
So if it's okay for you, let's take a big jump to something completely different.
Sure.
Okay, so say you started playing bass in when you were 16, so that's 28 years, almost 20 or 20,
20,
26 years.
about
And
that.
and so after 26 years, having practiced and having like what some people call plateaus, reach plateaus in your playing, right?
Uh-huh.
What is what is your next aim? What is your current challenge?
Nobody remembers the bass playing when you're gone. Unless you recorded unless you wrote and recorded Teen Town or fucking Havana or something, nobody remembers the bass playing. So I have to now reconcile the fact that all the work I did trying to be the greatest jazz electric bass player in the world, which was a dumb goal to start with, I have to reconcile the fact that that was from a performance standpoint in the immediacy, perhaps not the most sensible goal I ever had, but also to draw upon the fact that it has taught me a lot of other things besides just having big chops on the bass. And it's informed my time, my sound, my melodic sensibility, my palette of, um, my musical landscape. And now I have to try and extract the most from that I possibly can through creating a catalog that will hopefully live, way, way, way into the future, farther than I will ever live. Um, it's not, and to not do it from the point of like, oh, I must sit here on this shelf with this person in this order, in this ranking, like, not to let the ego in there, to do it from a place of like, oh no, this is just truly what's going on in my brain in this very moment, and I want to document that and put it out there. And if somebody listens to it, awesome. But nobody will listen to it if I don't record it. So I have to get off my ass and do that and be more efficient with that process and find a way to enjoy it more. Not that I don't enjoy recording, I fucking love it. I love it maybe more than any other part of music. I don't have to travel. For the most part, sometimes you have to travel to record. I don't have to get on a plane normally. I don't have to deal with a bunch of people. I can just get on and do it. So I think there's that. Also, I think there are a lot of collaborations that I'm just leaving on the table stupidly. Like, just pick up the phone and ask the person. It doesn't matter that it's Herbie Hancock. What does it matter? He's just another human being. He did this thing with this other person. He's a musician. He wants to make music. Just fucking do it. Like make shit happen. Stop being afraid. Stop telling yourself or myself. Stop telling myself that, oh, you're not ready for that in some way, or because I know I am. It's just there's a I we were talking earlier about like where does it come from, the music and the process and the doing the work and all that stuff. I was homeschooled, so I believe I have like some massive underlying social disadvantages when it comes to communication. Um, in terms of, but there's always like this little stopgap here. There's like a little thing to bridge, and it's just tiny. Like literally picking up the phone and making a call is a massive task to me. Go walk on stage in front of 50,000 people and play music I've only just learned a week before. It's the easiest thing in the world. Pick up the phone and call someone to ask them, hey, do you want to make music together? One of the toughest things I ever have to do. So I have some like kind of underlying fundamental social communication issues, I think, that I really need to get over and kind of push through to make some of these things happen, which I know are going to be super fun. They were going to pay off big time, even if they suck and they never get released. Just the experience of doing it will be amazing. So I think those are some things I need to do now after all these fucking years of playing scales.
Thank you for being so open about that. And again, I think a lot of people will be able to find themselves in what you just said.
Probably, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And what's the worst that can happen? I think at this point in our lives, we all know way worse shit has happened. you know,
I have to tell you, let's just putting out more music is important. Like this is really what I was thinking when I saw you. Like this guy should actually be putting out more music. I want to
100.
hear you. I like, everything seems to come from that place. So why don't you do it? And it was kind of obvious. And I'm happy to hear that you're on the path to doing that, because also via the music, these maybe some phone calls you won't even have to make yourself. This is
Right.
how it went for me, because then
Right.
suddenly people called me, but it was because I was putting out this music that where people went, wow, what is
And
that?
that's the thing as well. It's like, why try and conform to something that you think you should be doing in order to get into a scene that maybe you're not a part of, maybe you'll never be a part of. And as a result, you're just taking so many options off the table by not being heard by someone you have no clue who they are. I know there's somebody out there right now that this time next year, I'm going to know them and be making music with them that I had no clue that was coming, you know?
Yes.
Like I've had that even in, like, most recently with now I gotta say, my good friend Benny Greb is a great German drummer, lives up in Hamburg, and like just kind of out of nowhere we even have so many mutual friends in the scene. Like we're both super close with Jojo, for instance, and he has two English guys in his band for a while and all these connections. And he just reached out and said hi on like social media one time. And 6 weeks later, we were in Thailand playing a concert with his band in Singapore. Like, and it was amazing, you know. I knew of him, like, oh yeah, Benny Greb, he's that drummer. Now he's the guy who tunes the floor tom better than anyone I've ever heard in the history of floor toms. Like that's a fucking unbelievable experience I had with him. And you have to be there on the stage 10 feet from the drums on the hi-hat side, like these little details that I know now through this one dumb little message, you know.
Mhm.
And there was a time where that wasn't in existence, and now we're great friends and we talk all the time, we play shows. And so yeah, I definitely foresee things like that. I also foresee things like completely unrelated to anything I've ever done.
Mhm.
I want that. Like I crave that. Like I saw that Brian and Roger Eno are going to do this concert together for the first time in Athens. And first of all, I think it's in September. First of all, I wish I could go. But second of all, I was like, whoa, these motherfuckers are brothers. And they've never played together before.
Mhm.
And they don't do a thing that's like that crazy far apart either. They both kind of make music in almost the same sort of lane-ish. It was like, holy shit. And that took them, they're in their 60s or 70s now or something. Jesus.
This. Yeah.
70s, right? How crazy is that? That makes me look like a kid compared to some of the things I could be doing and working on. So imagine what it's going to be like when I get to my 70s, you know? Like, yeah, so I'm hopeful. I'm like very optimistic, which is great. And
So
yeah.
on your Wikipedia page, I saw that you were inspired by Lawrence Cottle. Is that true? Like, did
Oh,
he?
you know Lawrence?
I never met him, but I know of him for sure.
Oh, well, so there you go. So you already know who the guy is. So I wanted to be a drummer.
Mhm.
Playing drums, you know, classical guitar was the thing. That's what helped me move to the bass so efficiently with the technique. I'd been doing that for a while, like really seriously studying classical guitar. But drums I'd taken up, and I was like smashing away in the garage like every day. And all I wanted, drums, 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 drums. And my friend was like, "Hey, you want to go to this jazz gig?" Oh, okay. He said, "You got to hear this bass player." I said, "What the fuck? I don't care about the bass player. Who's the drummer?" You know? And it was a great drummer, Ian Thomas,
Yeah,
who's,
Thomas, yeah,
you know, Ian? Okay.
of course.
There you go. So Ian, for people who don't know Ian or Comfy or Yanto, he's like main studio guy in the UK. Like there are two or three guys in London. Like there are two or three guys in LA. He's the main guy in London, and he's very close. He's Welsh. He's very close with Lawrence. So I go to a place called the Gun Tavern. Typical English Sunday lunchtime jazz gig in a pub. It's very, very English. At least it was then.
Mhm.
And it's Lawrence. It's his band with Ian Thomas, with Nigel Hitchcock, great saxophone player, and Graham Harvey on keyboards, and Claire Martin, great English singer who sat in and sang Perdido. I remember the set list. I remember everything about this gig. She sang Perdido with the band. And I sat there like, what the fuck? Like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, looking at Lawrence, you know? That was it. First tune in, they played Nothing Personal, the Don Gronick tune. And they played that tune. I was like, oh, this is it. You know, cut all my drumsticks in half, throw the shells in the trash. Like, I want to be a bass player. And that was a Sunday. On Monday, I had a little bit of money, like a couple of $100, went out and got a shitty bass. Went to the music store, got a shitty bass, and I'd asked for his number at that gig. Like, remember that analog where you had to go up and they wrote a number down, and the number was to a telephone, which was a thing in a room in a fucking house. Like, it was that analog. And I called him on Tuesday. So Sunday I see the gig, Monday I get the bass, and I called him on Tuesday. I said, man, I want to do this. And he's like, what? And he lived like 4 minutes from me. And he said, well, I got this gig tonight, you know, I can take you out to another gig, you check it out, you know. He came and picked me up, took me to the gig, and for 2 years, he took me to every gig he played. And he never gave me a lesson. He was like my hardcore music mentor, but never, I would ask him things. I say, so was that a flat 9 or a sharp 9 on the F7? He said, you work it out, man, work it out. And he really pushed the ear and listening and doing the work. He really pushed the concept of do the work, you know. And I had a little, well, check this out. It wasn't a micro cassette even. This is like fancy compared to the one I had. I had like a bigger one, dictaphone with the full-size cassette in it. And I would just set it up next to the stage, record everything I heard of him. I recorded on cassettes, you know, and because of the drinking laws in the UK, pubs would close. Most of the gigs were in pubs or music venues. They close at 11. So I could be home by 11:30, and from like 11:30 until 3 in the morning, I'd just be there with the tape machine, listening to everything and transcribing and writing it all down and learning it. So every day was like a massive real-time lesson from him for like 2 years, or a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. Took me to the studio. I went to his house, hang out. We both like juggling fans, like freak juggling fanatics. So we would like juggle fire and machetes and clubs and stuff in his backyard and all kinds of shit. Just a major hang. And he would hit me to albums, you know. I'd ask questions like, hey, where did that come from? He'd say, oh, that's Wayne Shorter, that's Speak No Evil, this is from Art Pepper, this is, you know, that's James Jamerson. You know, he'd tell me about stuff.
I'm grateful you mentioned that, because that really is something absolutely special to be given or passed on, you know, this I don't know, this genius, let's say, from a genius, you know, like it's, I didn't want to use the word master. That's why I said genius. Right?
I mean, everyone has their own word and what it means to them. You know, to me, when I look back on it, I didn't realize in the time, of course, but I look back on it, I realized what he was imparting to me was experience. And he had lived in Los Angeles for a while. He had a band called The Fence, and he had been around people like Jacko and, you know, hung out with him, and Jeff Berlin and like all those guys in the 80s, you know, late 80s in LA. He had decided that America wasn't for him, and he moved back to the UK. But then he became like #1 studio guy, and with like Eric Clapton and Seal and just the list of things he did. He played on Headless Cross, for Christ's sake, the Black Sabbath record, because the bass player was getting married that week, you know. And he's like every day during the day in the studio recording a Black Sabbath album, and every night of that week he was at Ronnie Scott's doing a jazz gig, you know, like the kind of range of the guy. And talking about his first sessions and walking into Abbey Road with the orchestra, you know, and being a rock guy before that. And like, you know, rock session is at 12, you show up at 1, you record at 3. You know, you go to Abbey Road with an orchestra, the session is at 10:30, you're there at 10, the session starts at 10:30 and ends at 11:30. He shows up and walks in with his bass in the gig bag, 10:45 a.m., walking through the orchestra to the back of the room, like everyone looking at him. He's like, What the fucking wrong with all these people? Like just great moments of you can't buy experience, right? We all know this.
Mhm.
You just can't buy it. But when you're around someone who's had that much of it, it really sets you up for success when you end up in those situations yourself.
Incredibly fortunate, really.
Oh, and just like imagine that, like even now, like I don't have the capacity to do that for someone now. If somebody came to a gig of mine on a Sunday and bought a bass on a Monday and called me on Tuesday, I'd probably have to say, well, good luck. Like I'm not like driving someone around to gigs and being able to mentor them. I don't have the mental capacity. So it's unbelievable that he managed to do that.
Yeah, I do that kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, I mentor people, and I
It's
just
great.
yeah, I just make it happen somehow. Like, and like there's one thing that's special about this story also is that you did actually make that call. You called Lawrence on the Tuesday.
True.
And there you go. I have a couple things that I in my life that I where I made a call and it led to something amazing. Like, and then, just imagine we could do that like every day. I know it doesn't work like that, but I know exactly what you're saying. I also have this, like, I can't even call my doctor. I don't know. It just, I hate the telephone.
I hate the telephone. I really do. And I think I liked it more when it was just a telephone.
Mhm.
You know, I
But
I think with
even then I had the same problem. Like I didn't want to answer the telephone. Like when my brother or my parents were in the house and the phone was ringing, I never picked it up.
I mean, I'm like that now. Like the doorbell, I never answer the door.
Mhm,
You could
mhm,
be at my front door ringing the bell. I would never come to the door.
mhm.
It's like I just won't do it. Delivery is nothing. Like you have to drop the shit or leave it on my porch and go drive away, and then I'll come out and get the delivery and bring it inside. But I'm not coming to the door for anyone. It's crazy. It's a crazy thing. With the phone thing, like, and another amazing example, another fortunate moment in my life with that, with actually making the call, was with Mike Stern. And before I'd moved to the US, I was working with a producer, American producer, arranger called Richard Niles, who lived in London for like 35 years. I got to work with him before he moved back. And he had been in Berkeley with Mike Stern, and he was Pat Metheny's roommate, and like he had written this guitar quartet that they had all played in. So he just knew all the cats from the early 70s. And I was talking Mike Stern, Mike Stern, Mike Stern, Mike Stern is my hero. I was transcribing. He was like, he's like, okay, man, let's fucking call him, huh? Like I was like, oh, we can't do that. He said, well, better than that. Let's record some music. Let's record a little demo and send it to Mike in New York. It's like, holy shit. All right, let's do it. So he let me use his studio. He wrote this music. Ian Thomas played drums on it. He made this whole piece of music for just basses, like 15 basses all layered up. And we used fretless to create strings. It was a really creative little song. And we burned it on a CD and we sent it off to Mike. And then like 2 months later, I went to Berkeley. Completely forgot about it. And a month after I got to the US, the phone rang in my mum's house because we'd put my home phone number on it in London. Didn't have a US number yet. And my mum picked up, hello? And, hey, is Janek there, please? Hey, it's Mike Stern. And my mum's like, because she had heard me transcribing Mike Stern for 2 years. She's like, no, he's in Boston now. Okay, you have his number? I want to check this cat out. you know, and that was another like very fortuitous, like, okay, let's send the thing, let's do this, like let's make something happen. And that was 97. We didn't end up like touring together until like 04 or 05. So it took a while, but still it was like now a kind of a adult lifelong relationship that came out of that one moment of like just doing it. And even if only 1 in 10 of those things actually
Yeah,
happens,
it's incredible. Like most really important partnerships in my life came out of a chance meeting, actually.
right.
And this is something that I keep telling like people who ask me about it. Say like never ever, you know, try to sell yourself to somebody as a musician, always as a human being, always as a friend,
Yeah.
right? And then they may want to find out,
Right.
or they will find out that you're a musician, and then they're going to be interested in you. But
And
yeah.
I always say that, the music business or the music industry is like 5% music and 95% dealing with people. Like, you have to deal with the human side of things fucking 19 times more than you do the music side of things.
I got so extremely lucky with my gig. Like Tony Levin has been on stages for almost 60 years, right? And so, like, even if we play like a small mountain village in Sardinia, uh, uh, on a tennis court, actually, people will come. Like,
Yeah.
there will be 100 people or more, because it's Tony Levin, because they've seen his face on a Sledgehammer video or whatever it was, or like the Funk Fingers or whatever. And like whenever I'm on stage, and because we really don't have to play anything that people ask for, we can just do whatever we want.
Right.
And so, like, I'm always like there, like, I'm so grateful, Tony, that I can be here, and that your work, your life's work has kind of like made it possible for me to be here to do what I love in front of an audience that you're bringing. And yeah, like, yeah, I just had to say that, because like it's certainly not me who kind of like uh, had the draw.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that's a major hole in in kind of the old, and maybe it's just an outdated model, maybe it's an outdated framework, but when you think way back, even you think back to like Louis Armstrong going to play with King Oliver first in Chicago back in the late 20s, early 30s, before he became Louis Armstrong, like before he became the legend and this What a Wonderful World and all that stuff that came later that everyone knows him for. He was a sideman, or he was on riverboats, apprenticing. And then you've got like the bebop thing. It was almost like Miles was kind of apprenticing with Dizzy and Bird, but then Miles was the master to the well, not thousands, but definitely hundreds of apprentices for 5 decades almost. You know what I mean? Like the amount of sidemen and women that came out of Miles's band, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Now you kind of in the jazz world have Wynton Marsalis with the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra to a certain extent, but it's a kind of an elite club that doesn't really change that much. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just mean that's kind of the parameters of the situation now. But you don't have that long-term apprenticeship option, which matures into solo career. When we look at like Mike Stern, John Scofield, Bill Evans, Rick Margitzer, Bob Berg, Dave Liebman, all of those people that came from the Miles band, they all had pretty kick-ass, at some point at least, solo careers. Some lasted longer than others, but we don't seem to have that anymore. We seem to have like, it's almost like straight to video, straight to DVD, straight to Instagram, without any of the substance being formulated or learned, by the master musician bringing that audience to you, like to really have that experience, to see, look from the back, even, as a bass player, like just to like look at what's going on, the way Mike Stern brings an audience. I would say like Mike Stern and Randy Brecker are kind of my Tony Levins for you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like they
yeah.
afforded me the opportunity to go on stage on like tiny clubs at the 55 bar and see the colors of people's eyes. They're so close to the band, or be on a big stage in front of 10,000 people in Brazil or something on some huge festival, and see how he works a crowd and see why they come to see him,
Mhm.
see what that human connection is. And you can't avoid it. It becomes a part of you when you're around it so much. And now you're like some 20-year-old kid, like with the fucking like, what the fuck is that? Like, I can hear good music from bad music. I'm just talking about where's your attitude and where's your connection with the audience and where's your heritage? Like where's the depth in your time and your sound and your emotional content and your storytelling ability now?
There's, as you said earlier, there's always a little bit of a risk to sound like an old man.
Yeah.
However, like these kinds of concerns that older men have, you can't see it when you're younger. So, and that's why I think that these like really serious concerns that I have about younger people, where I'm wondering like how can they ever focus on anything, right? Like with all these distractions, and then these role models that kind of like where you'll have a hard time telling fantasy from reality,
Oh,
right? And
impossible.
it's kind of it's really horrible, and I don't know.
So
I think we need to. I think it's actually okay to point this stuff out, and we don't need
100%.
to feel old for that.
And if you, I dropped you an image in our Zoom chat. There's a
Yes,
Zoom chat. Do you see this?
yes. I'm opening it.
May or may not want to share this with your viewers, but
No,
at
I will
least
not.
you will not. But you can read it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the current climate of the Twitch streaming platform,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Imagine that. So for everyone probably not about to see this image, it's bad. Let's just say it's bad. It's like you can't tell the difference between a pornographic streaming site and what is meant to be an artist, gamer, music, creative streaming platform in Twitch, you know? And that is the framework we are dealing with right now. That is the sort of superficial pressure people are under. People going into immense amounts of financial ruin and debt to rent a private jet for the day to get that one Instagram photo that makes it look like they're taking a vacation to the Maldives on a private plane. You know,
Well,
this
you could use a green screen instead.
I do. When I do
Yeah.
my photos in the Maldives, I use a green screen, people. $80. Way cheaper than a private jet rental on the tarmac for the day. But yeah, it's crazy. And of course, that's the extreme end of the Instagram influencer world. I'm definitely not about to get into a bikini and jump on a plane. But that really, the whole mentality, I think, crosses over into the music world. And as a result, we're looking at 15 to 60-second clips of complete fantasy. Like you said, you can't tell the difference between reality and fantasy. Like, it's like the old thing of like when Pro Tools came on the scene and it's like, oh, you can fix that in Pro Tools, right? Like you make a mistake and you just, oh, snip this one out of here and take from the first verse, put it in the second verse, like making repairs. Like you can just do 800 takes of a piece of music and post the best one or the most edited one to your social media and make it look like you can actually do what you're professing to do. And it's utter bullshit. And that builds a narrative around, art that I think is pretty unhealthy, because it's not art anymore. It's very, very, very produced because you're pandering to an ad revenue business model, which is a little disconcerting.
I mean, the interesting thing is that you sort of have the skill to look like you know what you're doing and to be flashy, right? So for me, for example, it is something that is, I mean, flashy just in the sense of that there is a visual aspect and obviously also sonic aspect of what you're doing that kind of like also works for the younger generation, I find, right?
Oh, you mean quality of the production?
No, I'm just talking about your playing
Okay.
on your bass, right? So there's something that also speaks to an audience that really doesn't care if you can really play or if you're just a flashy player, right? So, but like for example, for me, my problem, which is a non-problem, okay, I'm just saying, non-problem is that I have kind of like worked on honing that skill to play that one note in that amazing way, right?
Yeah.
That people don't even see it anymore. Well, some do, but like say like that, like don't understand that I can play.
Yeah, for sure. And
and that is sort of so yeah.
here's the other thing. You know what people are listening to that one beautiful note on?
Yeah.
Speaker.
Yeah, I
There's
know, I
no
know.
air moving there. There's no vibrato nuance. Ah, there's the word. Sorry. Fuck, I knew I was searching for this word. There's no more nuance.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like digitizing everything and microizing everything into a 15-second clip takes away nuance. You have to smash someone in the middle of the face to get their attention now.
Hmm.
And you have to do it like so hard. Like, and yesterday I posted a clip on Instagram, which is like, just fuck you.
It
Good
is.
luck trying to do, yeah, good luck trying to do this because like nobody can do this. You know,
Mhm.
like one of those kind of clips where it's like, yeah, this took me 6 months to get this thing down. And I didn't do it for Instagram. I did it because I love Michael Brecker and I wanted to be able to articulate the way he articulates at 310 BPM playing double time. Like, it's fucking insane. Or not double time, but playing eighth notes at 310 in that way, in that saxophonistic, intervallic, Coltrane school of playing. This is a personal goal. But when you put it on Instagram, it's definitely a fuck you because people are like, oh, fuck, I don't have the 6 months that it takes me to just learn that one bar, you know?
But you know, there are other people who spent like 6 years learning a specific picking technique to play that one lick where, you know, like when and this is the other side of kind of like having time, right? Okay, like okay, it's easy to play this. All I need is time to do it. And I'm not talking about what you did, but this kind of shredder thing where you can see, okay, all they do is they simply move the same shape. That's
Yeah.
easy. But actually knowing which notes you're playing and choosing them sort of like even like in the moment, right? Like nobody understands that anymore.
Yeah, well, nobody understands improvisation, period, I don't think. On the whole, it's a big generalization, but
Yeah.
what is what is hmm, what is billed as the feature act is not actually what's happening in the show. You know, like, being a jazz musician here's the thing. It's something I've talked about for years, since the beginning, actually, that having chops and having technique is not playing fast. Right? You just said it about actually making choices in the moment that are fluid and are honest and are a representation of what you're hearing and the story you're trying to tell. This is not the shredder thing of just knowing the line that you work on for 6 years. But it's advertised as this is improvisation and this is all those things that it isn't, you know?
Yes.
Uh, and it's crazy because we talk all this shit about how, get off my lawn, man, I'm fucking old man. We talk like this so much, but there are amazing musicians who are doing this kind of stuff. You know, the latest Shy Maestro record. I don't know if you know Shy Maestro, the piano player. Ha 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 ha. Out of control good. Like, I had to drive into the mountains and drive around and listen to this album like 3 times, fucking crying my eyes out. It's unbelievable music. Just like hit me in the stomach, like, boah. And he has an amazing trio. Now he added Phil Dizak, a great trumpet player who played on my last record. He added Phil to make it a quartet. Unbelievable. Some of the things they're doing there are on a whole other level of operation, like something that even I'm going to give myself some credit that I know what the fuck is going on, and I will say with as little ego as possible that even I am like, holy shit, how did they get to that? You know, the amount of time I spend concentrating and working on improvisation and being honest in the moment, and I'm listening to music thinking, holy shit, it's fucking unbelievable. So it's on some really intense level, and you look at like Aaron Parks and younger players like this, like jazz musicians who are doing that, but not seeing any recognition for it, basically.
Mhm.
Compared to some twat on Instagram with millions of followers who can unbelievably show up somewhere live and have that Tony Levin style audience show up because they put fucking pretzels on their hi-hat or or they wore a funny mask, or they wore wacky clothing, or they shaved their head when they had dreadlocks last week. I don't know. They did some non-music related thing to gain
Mhm.
attention, and all these people showed up. And then all these people believe that what they're doing is that real, in the moment, honest improvisational performance, you know. I'm not saying that everyone's goal is that. You know what I mean? And it's important to have the perspective and the context of it all. And if it's just like, and there's 50,000 people that want to hear, then great, good for you. But it's when the lines get blurred that bother me. And it's such a small world as well. Like sort of everyone knows everyone in improvised music, basically, to a certain extent, especially in jazz, whatever jazz is anymore. It's really easy for the lines to get blurred and for you to be like, well, hang on a second, that's bullshit. And nobody calls bullshit anymore. Everyone's too afraid to be canceled. You know, nobody wants to speak out. Nobody wants to get like kicked off their social media platform or whatever. Everyone's kind of afraid. Where it used to be fearless, it is now completely fearful. It's like fear-driven creation, which is kind of sad.
It's super sad, and
that follows like American politics almost, or just mainstream politics in general, and media, like being fearful of something when really you have power.
The question is what happens when the bubble bursts, you know? That's sort of
the bubble of fear?
Well, yes, and the bubble of social media curious and like, I don't know.
I hope it's inevitable. I would love to sit here with supreme confidence and say that it is inevitable that the bubble bursts. It's a big wave to slow down right now. You know, maybe it doesn't burst in my lifetime, or maybe at the very end of it. But I also think there are other technologies arriving that.
Do you really think it's going to take that long?
You know what? The pandemic and the lockdown and the coronavirus has really like stopped progress on so many things that I don't have a sense of what's happening in the real world right now until I get back out there.
I agree.
And see what the reaction is, you know? So let's see in a year's time from now, I think we're going to have a much better idea of like what people's tolerance level for bullshit is. You know, and is that still as high as it was 18 months ago? Because it was pretty fucking high 18 months ago. People just deal with all kinds of shit. Oh, let's go to this gig. Oh, okay, and it's total shit. So let's see what that is. Let's also see how many artists take some artistic responsibility moving forward, and how important perhaps that becomes again. I'm really looking forward to the private hire model of playing shows where you cut out the booking agent, you cut out the venue, you cut out all the middlemen, and you just say, okay, I believe in my live show. I think there are 250 people in this city that believe in it, so fuck the venue. I'm just going to hire this room, put a sound system in it, and tell people where to go. You
know what's... I've already done something like that, which is the house concert route.
Right, exactly. I've done a few of those.
And so like with like say maybe 30 people, you can make as much money as you would make with 200.
Well, that was what my Last Minute World Tour was a lot to do with in 2017 already, like 4 years ago. I just said, if you get me the venue and the audience, I will commit to paying the travel and maybe the accommodation. It depends what the deal is. And some concerts I played were like, played a festival in Poland for like 500 people or something in a theater. And another was like 60 people in a house concert. Both gigs paid the same.
Yes. Yeah.
You know? And I was talking to Jojo about this last week, and he's working with AI and like all this fucking crazy shit that he's working with now, like improvising, and you know, he's a mad scientist, always has been on like the cutting edge of that stuff with acoustic meeting digital, basically. And he was saying like, look, all I need are 250 curious people every night. That's it. His setup is a little bigger. It's a little more overhead, whatever. You know, mine could be as well if I don't want to tour solo. But that's really all you need. I could do it with 100 to 150 and really make some money. That's the other thing. I have to justify leaving home as well, you know, to go through the brutality that is traveling, especially as there's nothing in America. Like, I'll never tour in America. It's totally fucking pointless. Like nobody is interested, unfortunately, so far. Maybe that will change. Maybe that will be a really nice change because it will be easier to move around domestically. But mostly I resigned to the fact that I've got to go to Asia, I've got to go to South America, and of course, predominantly I have to go to Europe, you know.
Hmm.
And once every year, once every other year, I can go to Australia and New Zealand maybe, or take a South Africa or something on the schedule. But it's brutal. I'm
Yeah,
sure you've
and
traveled everywhere in the world with Tony, right? Like,
yeah, almost everywhere.
yeah. So like, as great as the gig is, as awesome as Tony is, and that music and the band and the experience and the audience coming, there are some times where that 5 a.m. lobby call is like, fuck, I
Yeah,
really want to be home, you know?
yeah. I'm really curious how it will be for me to get back into that lifestyle.
Mhm.
And I mean, for Tony, it must have been totally brutal. He's been constantly traveling for
Yeah,
50 years.
whole life, yeah.
Yeah, and
Maybe it
then
was nice. I mean, I tell you, some of the like more famous, established musicians I've spoken to, friends of mine over the last year, were like, "Bro, greatest thing to ever happen to me." So I don't want to be morbid or sick, but like personally, I got a year off, and I haven't had one in 20 years plus. Like yeah. For me, I'm not the gigging guy. I'm not the Tim LaFave who probably plays 150, 200 gigs a year with
Mhm.
all kinds of amazing different people. I don't do that schedule anymore. I stopped in 2010. That was the last time I did like 300 shows in a year. Was 2010. But even last year, I was like, oh yeah, that 2 weeks would have been awesome, and I missed that gig, and I really I need to do 50 gigs minimum a year,
Mhm.
and probably I'm going to be the 80 to 100 gig guy at some point again. If I can, we'll see, we'll see.
Yeah, if you also feel like it, let's talk again in 6 months or so, or
Sure.
at
Without
the
a
end of the year, and let's see how things have gone.
and
Like
you're in which? Are you in Berlin?
I'm in Berlin, yeah, yeah,
Cool.
and
Well, I may be there in a few months,
give me a
which would
call. I mean, I'm only going to be out of town in August for a camp, like a summer camp in New York State.
cool.
So, but that will just be 2 weeks. So,
Cool. Yeah, I'm hoping maybe the end of July or something like that. Once travel gets okay, gonna do a few things. Maybe visit Benny up in Hamburg, and there's also this guy Heinbach. You know this guy?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would love. That's another call I would love to make and be like, "Yo, let's. If you have 2 hours or 1 hour of your time, just hit record and let's see what happens."
Do
Like,
it, do it.
yeah,
Call him, send
yeah.
him an email. It's easier.
Okay. Yeah, I will. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Man, I have the sneaky suspicion we could probably talk all day.
Yet, no, this is enough for today. Enough
Yeah,
for one sitting.
I gotta go take care of my wife and get on with the rest of the book project, which is
Yes.
screaming for my attention.
Give her my regards and all the best with the book. And you're awesome.
Yeah, man, my pleasure, man. We'll do it again for sure.
Take care. Huh?
Tschüss,
Yeah,
tschüss.
thank you. Just.